When we last left our heroes, they'd just met the Inquisitor for the first time, and also one of them sold their soul to Harvey the Bard in exchange for his help in getting the third of the legendary Dragon Fangs. Now they were on their way to the city of Norwich, where they were going to try to meet with the Baron to try to sway him to the side of the revolution against the Valorian Lord. As their boat was approaching the docks of the city, they heard a thunderous roar echo throughout the sky, before a massive creature flew towards the city and used its fire breath to ignite an entire street. The party jumped onto the pier and ducked down an alley to use as cover while they discussed battle plans. Do we think that this counts as an impossible situation? You're suggesting that we use the gemstone, aren't you? Potentially. I mean, think about how easy it would be to convince the Baron to join our side if we were able to stop the dragon destroying his city. Before even getting to the fact that Harvey said that if we use the gemstone we'll owe him a huge favor, which is why we've had it basically this whole campaign without ever using it. We don't even know what it will do. What if it just teleports us away to safety? That wouldn't help us at all. I guess you make a good point. We'll save the gemstone for later, but we've still gotta try something though. Thousands will die if we don't. I've got an idea. Creed then walked into the street and shouted into the sky in Draconic. The dragon's head coiled around to look at the party at the docks, and all of the citizens nearby then started jumping off into the ocean around them. As the dragon began rapidly flying towards them, the party used rope trick to create a tiny dimensional portal that they all climbed into and hid in. The party sat in there for a minute while the entire docks around them, as well as the water itself, was lit on fire by the dragon strafing overhead. Upon realizing that other people were getting hurt because of his decision, Creed climbed out of the portal and drew his weapon, only to take 72 fire damage from the dragon's fire breath and immediately go down. This wasn't my best plan. The dragon laughed at Creed's pitiful attempt at fighting it before flying off to destroy more of the city. The party quickly healed Creed and sat in the rope trick for another 10 or so minutes while they waited for the dragon to stop its attack, and eventually it retreated back towards the mountains to the west. In the aftermath of the dragon attack, the party found a tavern called the Sad Goblin, where they rented out rooms for the night. Before they could go up to their rooms, they were approached by a noble. He held up a wanted poster of the party and said, "This is you, right?" The party immediately put their hands onto their weapons, getting ready for a fight to break out. "Wait, I was sent here by Wimrath. You can trust me. He told me to keep an eye out for you so I can help you out with the diplomatic situation here. He gave me this letter to show you. Alright, you can stay with us for now, but only for the next few days while we figure out this Baron thing. Then we're going back on our own." That's how they met the newest member of the party, Rickard, the High Elf Arcane Archer. The next day, the party managed to get a meeting with the Baron up at his castle. Remember, let me do all the talking and we should be good. "Hello there, guards, we have a meeting with the Baron scheduled." "Alright, who exactly are you, though?" "It is I." Are you going to elaborate on that thought at all?" "Of course, I'm the legendary ranger named Creed. You might have heard of me before. I've slain countless villains and have saved hundreds of lives in my many adventures." "Right this way, sir, the Baron is waiting." The party went into the main throne room and negotiated with the Baron for a little while, and by the end they'd managed to come to an agreement. The party would go out to the dragon's lair and kill it, and in exchange the party would use his army to help them storm the capital of the kingdom. Overall, not too bad of a deal. The only problem was that it was an ancient red dragon, and the players were only level 7. They didn't think it would be too big of a deal, but they had no idea what they were in for, because while there most certainly was a dragon lurking deep in the heart of the mountain, there were much more sinister creatures defending the path inward. While they were walking down the entrance hallway, a large burning log was dropped from the ceiling and began rolling towards them from behind. They rushed down the corridor and into the first room of the dungeon, only for one of them to step onto a fake tile that dropped him right into a pit full of oil, right where the log was going to fall into in a few seconds. The party managed to get him out of the pit in time, but not without activating a few dart traps along the way. They briefly thought they were safe, but then they heard a handful of voices shouting a battle cry echoing throughout the dungeon. "We just walked into a Kobold Dungeon, didn't we? As long as we stick together and do this methodically, we should be safe." The party was then ambushed by 3 different groups of kobolds that fired at them with crossbows before running off. And as you probably could have seen coming, they split up into 3 different groups and started running after them. What came next was the party running into basically every single trap possible while being fired at by kobolds who always seemed one step ahead of them. Here were a few of my favorite traps. One room had tiles that had a black and white checkerboard pattern, and there were darts hidden in the walls. The thing about this room though is that every single tile was a trap, regardless of the color. So the party spent a few turns trying to figure out which tiles were safe, only to activate the trap a lot of times, and then learn that there weren't any safe tiles. One hallway was filled with spinning blades that could be activated by a lever, and on the far end of the hallway was a kobold standing next to a giant crossbow that they'd fire down at the party. The best part though was that the crossbow bolt was chained to the crossbow, so if it hit someone, the crossbow would start pulling the player through all of the spinning blades and away from the rest of the party. Lastly, one of the rooms had a boiling lake at the bottom of it, and to get across you needed to jump across a bunch of platforms floating in the air. But some of the platforms were actually illusions, so you'd try to jump onto it but instead you'd fall into the lake and have to get out before you died from the fire damage, all while kobolds were shooting at you and shouting their catchphrase. Eventually, the party was able to corner the kobolds without anywhere to go. As a last-ditch effort, the kobolds offered to give the party a bag of holding containing half of the dragon's hoard in exchange for letting them leave. And for some reason, the party actually trusted them and took the deal. At this point, the only room left in the dungeon was the dragon's lair, so the party walked in ready for what would be an absolutely insane fight. Luckily, the party wasn't as badly prepared as they would normally be, because the city of Norwich had sent out a band of people known as the Dragon Slayers a few weeks back, and they'd all been equipped with the best dragon slaying gear. Sadly, dragon slaying gear doesn't help against a pack of sadistic kobolds, but luckily the party was able to loot their corpses and collect the dragon slaying gear for themselves. The party walked into the dragon's lair, and resting in the middle of the room, stabbed into a jagged stalagmite, was Cinder, the fourth of the dragon fangs. Behind Cinder was a pool of lava that the dragon itself was submerged in, and behind that was a massive pile of gold. "I've got an idea." Imsh then rushed into the room, right up to the dragon, and proceeded to pull Cinder out of the stone. This changed the entire fight, because every time the party gets another fang, all of the fangs they already own become more powerful, and this one was a huge buff. All of your fangs are now +6 weapons in addition to all of the other buffs to their abilities that I'll send in the chat to you all right now. After this, the battle began in earnest, and initially was looking very good for the players. But then, due to some unlucky saving throws, the tides turned rapidly against them, and the situation turned dire. "I think it's time to activate the gemstone." "Are you sure? I really don't want to owe Harvey a favor." "Would you rather be reduced to ash by the dragon that's about to kill us?" "Fair enough." Then Char activated the small black gemstone that Harvey'd given the party near the beginning of the campaign. The air began to crackle with electric energy, and the sun above them was blotted out. Far in the sky above the opening to the cave was Saint Jimmy the Jellyfish God, who proceeded to smite the dragon out of existence before floating off. The party had managed to win the fight, and now had the support of Norwich in the upcoming revolution, but now they all owed a favor to Harvey the Bard. One which he would waste very little time in calling in.